Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And I didn't realise how bad the situation was in New York. Then I heard a story that Florence Pugh, the actress, had to literally come off stage. She couldn't breathe. She was having, difficulty struggling to breathe because of the quality of the air. It is appallingly bad. And this isn't pollution as such. It is a major fire, actually in Canada, and it's all sweeping down. So it's mixing obviously with the car fumes and people's breath and all that sort of stuff. But it is absolutely choking the city. And like I said, I didn't realise how bad it was till I read about Florence Pugh. And so I sort of went on, Googled it, went, boom, let's see, New York City, air, and this story came up. And it's actually, it's astonishing, really. So I thought I'd just do a quick piece on this. It's a sort of thing. It's almost disastrous for New York when you look at the state of it. It is appalling. Anyway, so quick. I'm just going to go straight in and do this piece. But it is, you do feel sorry. I mean, don't normally feel sorry for New Yorkers, but in this case, I do. I don't mean like I feel sorry for the ordinary New Yorkers because the rich buggers could all just get out and go Aspen or something, can't they? But it's the poor schmucks left behind. Anyway, we'll have a look at this article to see what's going on. Right, so I'm going to go through this article, but before I do, I'd just like to say if anyone from New York actually does watch this video, thank you very much for watching. What I want to ask, if you are in New York, you are there, and you have sort of, you're aware of what's happening, do in the comments, do write down, tell us exactly what's going on and what it's like. It'd be very interesting to hear that. Thank you very much if you are, and you can respond. That'd be super. Anyway, New York City's last major air pollution disaster killed 168 people, and that was back 58 years ago, nearly 58 years ago, in 1966. And this led to the US passing the 1970 Clean Air Act. The smoke blanketing New York City this week harkens back to the city's major air pollution disaster, like I say, nearly 60 years ago. On Thanksgiving weekend 1966, a cloud of noxious smog fell over New York, this leading to 3 days of dangerous air circulating around town. The smog was so potent and dangerous that it ultimately led to the creation of a major federal legislation around the pollution of including the 1970 Clean Air Act. London had a similar thing. After the war, industry came in, went mad in sort of the early 50s in London, and they used to get the thick smogs then. They called them the big pea supers because you literally couldn't see your hand in front of your face with it. And that led to the Clean Air Act in London. They did. I think that was in the late 50s that came in. But London had a thing, and there was something like 4,000 people died, which is why it was done. It was an absolute slaughter of the people, this particular smog in the late 50s. Before I was born, I must hasten to add, despite, don't let these boyish good looks fool you. But it was before I was born. But I know people who were there and they will tell you, it was awful. But anyway, getting into this story. As New York City and states around the country face the descent of smoke from wildfires in Canada, see, it's the bloody Canadians, isn't it? That are clouding views and filling lungs with unhealthy air. DailyMail.com is looking back on the city's last major air pollution disaster, which happened nearly 60 years ago. And that's why this story sort of jumped at me. I saw things on there and I went looking, but this one here, it shows the sort of the contradiction, I suppose. Contrast, better a word, isn't it? The dichotomy, even, if you will, between the 1966 and today, 2023. Obviously, everything in black and white thing. It was a terrible time to live. Everything was in black and white. So you have that. You have this comparison of then and now. But it is interesting to see. But beginning on Thanksgiving weekend 1966, the noxious cloud of sulfur and carbon monoxide began to envelope New York City. The cloud cover would become known as the Great New York City Smog of 1966, and it remains one of the worst pollution episodes in American history. And the smog was so bad that 168 deaths were likely caused by the smog, and 10% of the entire population of the city had health effects. And there it is, and that's I believe that's the Chrysler building, isn't it? That's there. It is the Chrysler. It says at the bottom of the picture here. When I zoom up, you'll see that it's there. The only reason I know the Chrysler building is Ghostbusters and the things on the thing. But yeah, so that's New York City, and that's the Smog in 1966. And even at the top of the Chrysler building, it's quite thick. It's pretty bad, isn't it? And there's someone wearing... at the time, it was a gas mask in order to help them breathe and live. Today, it would be a fetish, wouldn't it? How times change. Anyway, smog in the city was ubiquitous in New York in the 1960s. Deaths from chronic bronchitis and pulmonary emphysema began to climb and were eventually linked to the dirty air, as well as widespread smoking, which never helps. Although, kids, don't ever smoke. It is really bad, but then you watch things like Mad Men and you realise it's cool. A similar episode, it's not cool when you're lying in a bed coughing your lungs up. Don't do it. A similar episode had occurred in 1953 and lasted for 6 days. Another smog had descended in 1963. But in 1966, visibility was so low and the air so dense that officials told those with heart, lung and respiratory disorders to remain indoors until the smog lifted. It's usually a temperature inversion and you're not getting any wind in, and because you've got the warm air over the cold air just sits there, it can't go anywhere. And, it just gets thicker and thicker and thicker, especially with cars and things like that and smoking. So it just gets worse and worse and worse until what you need is a good blast of air to whip it away. And it does clear really, really quickly once you get a bit of air. But, of course, stationary air with a temperature inversion isn't going anywhere. The haze led to estimated hundreds of deaths. Eventually, researchers in New York City found an increased death rate of approximately 24 deaths per day during the period where pollution blanketed the urban sprawl. And of course, New York City is actually one of those. It's very big in the centre in terms of all the skyscrapers and that. But it's like that. It goes out, but it goes out quite a way. Not maybe as far as say LA. LA is just like immense. If you've never been there, I couldn't describe how big LA is. But it's very low. It's very flat. Whereas New York City, high in the middle, but very broad as well. During the 3-day period, the city shut off garbage incinerators and requested that residents and companies work to minimise their emissions. The episode in New York led to greater awareness of air pollution as a serious health issue and risk around the country, and the city's government updated local laws that attempted to control air pollution. And then President Lyndon B. Johnson subsequently worked with Congress to pass the federal legislation that regulated air pollution in the US. One of his best actual things. Well, he has bad... To be honest, Lyndon B. Johnson has a very bad shtick over the years, but he wasn't all bad. He actually did some good things. And when you look at some of the things he did, you'd be surprised. You'd be absolutely surprised considering what people's views of him were, especially at the time. But he did an awful lot of good things. This was one of them. Their efforts culminated in the passage of the 1967 Air Quality Act and then the 1970 Clean Air Act. And there's some more pictures. And there's this smog. It's almost like it's like a tide, isn't it, coming in? It's like ocean spray. And then there's that, and you can't see. Now that's 1966. Now let's have a look at today. Let's have a look at New York 2023. And it's just like that, except it's in colour. That is appalling. Everything is sepia. Everything is jaundice. It's no wonder the people living there. I mean, you just look at that girl with her, trying to cover her mouth. That isn't going to really cut it, darling. You need something serious. And we aren't talking those little silly masks that they give you for COVID. You need serious breathing equipment. Fireman's standard breathing equipment. That is... that was the picture. I saw this on the news and I went, oh my word. Even the Statue of Liberty would be choking. Although I believe, and do correct me, any New Yorker, I do believe that the Statue of Liberty, so closely aligned with New York, isn't that actually in New Jersey? Again, I'm thinking of Ghostbusters. Hey, I learnt a lot from Ghostbusters. Beginning on Tuesday evening and becoming significantly worse on Wednesday, a sheet of smoke from the wildfires descended on New York. This is the current one, leaving those in Manhattan unable to see the New Jersey skyline across the Hudson. New Yorkers were sent inside as air quality alerts were also introduced in states including Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Illinois, Virginia and both the Carolinas, according to the National Weather Service. So it's a huge area. I mean, New York State is actually quite big. I mean, the ones to the north here are all quite small, relatively small. New York State is the first of the big states as you come down. And so, yeah, but it's even going all the way down to South Carolina. I mean, that is a hell of an area. Health experts warn that breathing the fog can be as damaging as smoking 14 cigarettes a day. Nanoparticles from the smog are so small they can penetrate the lungs and the bloodstream, with side effects also including irritation to the eyes and throat, as well as breathing problems. It is absolutely appalling, isn't it? Most of the smoke has come down from Quebec. It's the French Canadians. It's not just the Canadians, it's the French Canadians. I shouldn't do that. There's two things I cannot abide. It's racism and the French. It's a joke. Anyway, 400 wildfires are burning as Canadian officials warn they're in the midst of their worst fire season on record. I tell you, we could do with one here. It's the beginning of June and I had to light my coal fire the other night. I was that bloody cold. I wasn't putting the central heating on, so I could quick spark up in the coal fire grate just to take the edge off. It was that cold. The weather pushed most of the smoke across the east coast and it is expected to continue to do so for the next few days. Meteorologist Matthew Capucci, I hope I pronounced that right, if not I apologise, tweeted on Wednesday that the New York air quality would be much worse than the day before, bringing visibility to the city to below 3 miles. Looking at those pictures, I was surprised it's more than 3 feet. It's terrible, isn't it? In New York City, officials also warned vulnerable individuals such as the elderly or those with breathing problems to avoid exercising or indeed going outside. Look at it. Is that Times Square? That's Times Square. Oh my good God. It is something. Honestly, it is something out of a film. It's like some post-industrial apocalyptic film, isn't it? It's hard to believe that that is right. It's amazing. I'll come up, but I do feel very, very sorry for the people having to live in that. It is appalling. So I do hope a good sharp blast comes in the next day or two, clears it all away, and you can all breathe, fresh air for once, for a first time in ages by the look of it. Anyway, I shall round off and come up. Well, you can see why so many people are so very concerned about it. I mean, there will be people who will breathe that air in, who will get damage from it, and it will be permanent. They will never fully recover from breathing that kind of air into themselves. It's appalling. It might even see the end of some people. You just can't imagine it in the States. I mean, we were in LA. God, it must be 20 years ago, and we were I think we're up in Napa Valley. We were coming back down, so coming over the hills, and there's LA in front of you, and it was almost like a dome sitting over LA. And it was the smog. It was LA. It was the fumes and things like that. But it just looked like this whole city had a protective dome on it. Nothing was going to get through this thing, because we were staying. Where were we staying? Marina Del Rey. At least that was up by the coast, so you did get a bit of a breeze coming in. But you went round and it was like, oh my God. I mean, you look over there, lovely clear sky over there, clear sky. LA in front of you, this dome of dirt, yeah. But that says nothing compared with what New York is getting now. So yeah, I mean that is good. I mean, I hope, like I say, I hope the wind changes. They get a good blast in and just blow it all away. And have some clean, fresh air back in the city. Anyway, what can you do? It's the French Canadians. It is. It's the bloody Quebecois. Blame them. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please do hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. And especially if you're an American and you're in LA, not LA, shut up. If you're in New York, do please put down a comment. Let us know what's happening. Let us know how it is affecting you. And let's go with that. Thank you very much. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, breathe clean air, and goodbye.